All right. So from yesterday, is there anything that sticks out in your mind about, it's called the dogfish, but that is a common name or species of a shark. Anything stick out in your mind while dissecting the common dogfish?
Their teeth were really small.
Okay. And I would be led to believe that for the most part, that would probably be fixed on the size of the animal. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, and I'm maybe just trying to take a logical approach with this too, just because you're looking at a larger shark, should the teeth be extremely large as well? Well, you might think so, but could there be a disadvantage to having a very large set of teeth for maybe an animal that's only 16 feet long? I'm sure different great whites can be various lengths, but we're going to settle with 18 feet. So with that, how I'm interpreting, and you would be correct, okay? We'll just look at the tip of this pencil here between my fingers, and yeah, you really can't see it. What would maybe be a maybe if I get it up closer. Yeah, there we go. Between my fingers, yeah, it's quite small. But now, when you start elongating that up to about 18 feet, okay, would it be an advantage to having a tooth between my fingers here, this large? Would that be an advantage? And to me, I would say no, okay, because the larger that is, there's possibly more of a chance that that tooth can be damaged, although, yes, that's all right for these animals, because what happens when they lose a tooth? Yeah, it's just going to grow back another one. But if that gets to be a continual problem, well, then I think maybe nature would have designed them to be a little different. So I would be led to believe that the size of the teeth would be tied into at a fixed rate for the size of the shark. Anything else about the shark? Okay, true. And was that in both directions or just one?
The way it was like both directions, kind of.
Okay. But in my estimation, was it maybe smooth in one and rough in another? Okay? And that would be because of some of the, if you want to call them micro scales, I think would be a good way of looking at that. So we got the skin, we've got the teeth. Anything else stick out in your mind? No? And it was one of the things we said, look at this once you open the thoracic cavity of these. Well, technically, you don't have a thoracic cavity because they don't have vertebrae, because they're cartilaginous fish. So once you open up the, we'll say, anterior cavity, that would be more accurate. We said, and some of you had answered that yesterday. What was maybe something that stuck out in your mind once you opened that shark up? Yeah, the liver is actually quite large because it helps compensate for the flotation of these animals. Okay. All right. So therefore, moving forward then. Oh shoot, I thought I had this set up and ready to go. All right. So this is approximately where we left off with Monday. Okay. Or did we not talk about the rays yet? I remember that. Is that where that might have been where we stopped?
And that's where we stopped.
Okay.
We have one more. Yeah, the next one.
Okay.
Yep, this is where we stopped. We have this.
Oh, maybe we got down to food gathering. Okay. So with this, okay. Nope, must be on this next slide. Okay, it's really no surprise that these animals, not only can they sense electrical discharges, they can also, per se, give them out as well, as you can see. Okay. Okay, so that does it for cartilaginous fish. All right, what are our two classes that we've talked about so far? Okay, those are the actual animals, but what are the actual scientific classes? Sorry. Well, do our best. Chondrocetes. Okay. Maxini. We'll go with that. Okay, so which one's which? Who's the sharks? The longer one, right?
Yeah.
So when we're talking about Maxini or Myaxini, what might be an example of an animal in that class of fish? They're jawless. That's a classification. And you could say an old I did it again. Darn it. Why? An old lady, you might call an old what? Starts with an H.
Hag.
Okay? So what type of fish is that? Hagfish. Jawless. There's got to be a reason that hagfish are still around. Why? And they are. And it's important that they're. Yeah, they are the actual decomposers in the ocean. Okay, so moving on to the last classification of fish. I thought maybe it said that somewhere, but no, it doesn't. Okay. Okay. So the internal anatomy of respiration for sharks is different than that of the osteocheiths now, or bony fish. Okay, a chondrocyte is a cartilaginous cell. An osteocyte then is a type of bone cell, one that forms bone tissue, one that destroys bone tissue, one that stores minerals. Those are all different types of bone tissue. That's why we call them osteocytes. So therefore, osteocheiths then means bony fish. Okay. when we talk about having a high metabolism, okay, that means a human or an animal has to have a constant supply of these two things. What would they be? Just take a guess. Okay, nutrients. And if we're going to produce energy by glycolysis, which the human body can, is that why we're running low on this gas? What would that possibly be? Yeah, oxygen. To fuel the demands of a high metabolism, you have to have lots of nutrients and lots of oxygen. Now, with that, do fish have a high metabolism? No. Just take in just enough oxygen, what they need to utilize all cellular metabolic activities. That really is not going to change. It's making a progression in the reptiles, but really high metabolic rates are not found until we get to what type of animals would you guess? So if it's not fish, it's not amphibians, it's not reptiles, it's kind of an intermediate form with reptiles. The metabolic rates are getting a little higher and a little faster, but they are really high when you get to those after the reptiles. Because you're going from what we call ectothermic or cold-blooded to endothermic or warm-blooded. A little too far. Mammals is true, but that's not what we're looking for here. The birds, like Jerry back there. Birds are also endothermic. They have a high metabolic rates, so they have to constantly take in nutrients and then also have a large amount of oxygen. And birds are very well designed to do that. Okay, but in this case, there's a couple reasons why these gill structures are the way they do, or the way they are. You might say, well, why are they taking in all this oxygen if they don't have a high metabolic rate? Well, you have to take into account when it comes to shark behavior, they're constantly on the move. Here's my makeshift shark going through the water. Its mouth is open. Why is that? Because what's going to happen, one of two things, or you could say both, if they stop. They're going to sink and they can't breathe. Here is our walleye. Just kind of being stationary and just hanging out, really not worried about anything, well, unless something's going to come attack it or something like that. But typically that's not the case because we're talking about freshwater now. But with that, does the walleye have to worry about changing its depth, not sinking, and can it just stay stationary and breathe? Yes, it can. Okay? So one of the advantages that evolution had decided, okay, is that with this efficiency of drawing water across the gill surfaces, it must be extracting something out of that water. And that would be what? It's going to take that oxygen, and it's not going to be for its metabolic rates. We already said they are cold-blooded. So if that's the case, which it is, they need that gas for something else, and that is for maintaining a depth or level like this. Because one of the things we'll talk about is their natural buoyancy, gas gland or swim bladder. Okay? What happens is when you look, for instance, at that swim bladder, it's the same for that of whales as well. That would be a good example. Okay? Oddly enough, in an indirect way, we'll come back to this in just a moment, but what do like very large whales feed upon? Do you possibly know? And we'll see it in Finding Nemo as well, but what do whales feed upon? Okay, krill. Okay, krill. What are we Talking about something about like 3 feet long. Yeah, something about what, maybe 2 inches. Come on, these blue whales are about 80 feet. Are you telling me little 2-inch animals like this are going to satisfy an animal that is 80 feet long? They have to eat a lot, and it's not found typically at the surface. They've got to get down in order to do that. Well, how can an animal that big be less buoyant? You get a picture, if this is an 80-foot animal, what would you think the lungs in that would be? Because whales are mammals now, so it's not gills, it's lungs. What might the size of those lungs be? What, maybe 2 of these tables put together for the left lung, 2 of those tables, maybe even 3 tables put together. Okay? What whales will do is they will push all of that oxygen out of their lungs, and they're going to drop like a rock. Okay? Because what's true about air and water? Is air really buoyant? Yes. So what happens is, as they constrict all that air out of their lungs, they drop down to, we'll say, 200 feet below the surface maybe. Vast amounts of krill found down there. Just enough that they can satisfy their appetite. So I believe in scientific research says that after maybe 3 or 4 hours of doing that, they can satisfy their metabolic or their appetite and satisfy those metabolic activities. So, what do lungs have to do with that of a gas gland? Well, it works similar in nature. Bony fish have that swim bladder or gas gland. So what happens is if they extract all of the air out of that swim bladder, just like a whale will push all of the air out of their lungs, what does that force the animal to do? Go up or down? You got a 50-50 chance. It's going to cause it to go down. Then, when the fish wants to stabilize, let's say, its buoyancy or go back up again, it's going to extract the oxygen from the gill structure, and it's going to pull it back out of the water. It's going to inflate that swim bladder and then cause it to go up. That's why nature selected those animals to have that. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, we'll go ahead and just do this morphology, and we'll stop there for today. Yeah, just get this done, and maybe if you feel more comfortable, go get a drink of water, because I know there's nothing worse than sitting there. Oh, okay. Oh. You making her get all choked up, or? Something. Okay, does everyone have this content that wants it? Okay, well, I'll go ahead and close this down, so we will catch up to you next time. Don't forget, Friday is your first evaluation here, and then we will move forward with bony fish the rest of this week. Vocab quiz on Friday. We'll catch up to you next time.